Good day everyone and welcome back for a brand new review. Today I am here for a really interesting one. It's called Aven Colony. It is by Mothership Entertainment and published by Team 17. It was actually released back in July of 2017, but I just unfortunately didn't get around to actually putting the video out, although I've had this prepped for quite a while now. It is available for PC, PS4 and Xbox One, and it sits in the city building, strategy, survival and indie genres, and it is a strictly single player game. But before we get started, if you could please take a look at that subscribe button and hit that notification bell, I would really appreciate it if you enjoy the content here. Likewise, I love having a good old discussion in the comment section, so make sure to comment and drop a like if you enjoyed it too. I am also, of course, on other platforms as well. If you want to know when my videos go live, make sure to go to check me out on Twitter, as well as on Twitch, where I go and do some live content. And there is, of course, my Instagram if you want some behind-the-scenes stuff. But without further ado, let's dive on into this one. So, another day and another dive into the Deputy Leaderboard, taking on space exploration and the control of an unsuspecting colony of, well, should I say victims of my poor management. But yeah, of course, we're talking about Aven Colony. So starting with the visuals today, overall the game does look great, but I do have some little nitpicks. When scanning around, looking at the environment and the colony, I rapidly found myself feeling lackluster when I realised just how homogenised my colonies were looking between levels. Leading on from this, not only do you expect your colonies to appear more substantial and varied once they reach later levels, it is a fair expectation that population sprawl should really have an impact. However, this wasn't the case in Aven Colony. My large colonies always just seemed a little bit too quiet when looking at the paths. It didn't scream to me a thriving population and people rushing about their busy lives. The game would have benefited from representing this better. The environment themselves are lovely, but at best they're a shallow reskin of the surroundings and consist of environments that are not particularly creative. Seasons do have some bearing on mixing up the environments, but they do this in a fairly predictable fashion. Seasons do, however, affect the gameplay by influencing the abundance of resources such as food and electricity. This consequently has a knock-on effect on how you manage your colony to survive, which is great. Outside of the objects and environment visuals, another important factor in games like this is the interface and menus. A bad interface can really hurt a game, especially when it's management orientated. In Aven Colony, the interface is overloaded with information to the point of saturation. This results in lots of noise and overcomplication, and persistent interruptions from alerts that are really not necessary. Another consequence is it also means more digging around to find the specific thing you're looking for, which is a constant nuisance. Alerts will continue to bombard you even though issues have been dealt with, and the game fails to notice this. This was not just a nuisance visually, but also from a gameplay perspective, as it is a major distraction and annoyance. On a side note, they did do an update to the menu a while back, and I have to say I do appreciate the change. It does look a lot better in my opinion. So going deeper with regards to environments, planets feel really empty and there's a distinct lack of flora and fauna. The few interesting things I can see, I cannot interact with, such as ores. You cannot use these or discover anything about them. The possibility of learning more from the land is a huge missed opportunity. The sense of discovery is lacking, which is something rather bizarre for a game all about reaching out into the stars and colonising new worlds. And lands are just not particularly memorable. It's shocking. It's such a huge missed opportunity here. Really disappointing. From a mechanical perspective, the terrain is very important and you really should not ignore it. There is a decent variety of biomes, even though they are not, as I said before, the most inspired or creative. Working with the land you have available to get the maximum amount of resource, while also keeping the colony layout in mind to keep citizens happy, is super important. The positions of buildings in relation to homes and workplaces being balanced out with the environmental optimization for farms is really interesting. I am glad this is a key part of the game, but getting away from the typical environments you would expect to see would have given this game a really nice unique identity and kept me interested for longer. Moving on now to gameplay. Aven Colony features a good variety of game modes, which is always welcomed. The game starts with an excellent tutorial level that introduces each mechanic and tools that you need to understand and then tests you on them. From there, it has a decent length campaign of story missions where you are the governor and must establish colonies dealing with a variety of issues. The campaign is a bit repetitive and would have benefited from more depth and complexity to it. Additional missions are given to the players by advisors throughout the missions, which does keep things interesting, but it really doesn't hold the game up on its own. Of note as well, maps from the story mode do unlock for Sandbox once you've played the first few missions. As far as the gameplay is concerned, generally it is a mixed bag. I need to highlight at this stage the game is intensively focused on various meters, and there's a lot of heavy micromanagement involved, which in itself isn't necessarily too bad a thing. There is essentially the usual range of needs meters that you would expect, but if anything, there's too much focus on the meters. And this is where the game really fails, or at least in the sense of how transparent the meter managing is. I think a lot of this falls down to the way the UI works, and the rest of it is down to the way the game is structured. The reason I highlight this is because it took away from my immersion significantly, which led to a lot of disappointment. Speaking of immersion, colonists feel like robots. All seem to act identical, no social mobility, skills, education background, information on their lives, family units, age. Some more identifying features would have been useful to make me care more about my colonists. An example of this done to an excellent standard is Surviving Mars. In Aven Colony, it got to the point of the poor colonists being so bland and robotic that they gave little care about them. This led me down the inevitable path of fixating on balancing the meters from the numbers monster, rather than looking at my little minions with actual needs and desires. When it gets to that level of dehumanising, I may as well have spent my afternoon inputting numbers into a calculator. On a positive note, seasonal mechanics do work well and do affect gameplay, such as I've previously mentioned, electricity and food production. This is something I valued. Disasters are interesting and something I thought would spice up the experience, but they really don't actually pose a major threat. Not only are they not particularly threatening mechanically, there is a visual disconnect. You cannot see the evidence of the chaos within your citizens, which takes away from the gravitas of the event. There is a good range of different disasters that can happen, but they don't really have the impact and drama associated with them that I would have hoped for. As long as the early game is managed well within a level, you can pretty much be fine. The threat, it just come end game, it can't really do anything to you. It has little to no impact. The game needs something a little extra to keep you on your toes late game, but as to what this might be, I'm not sure. But what it does do is it leaves a gap that is noticeable. Going a step further as far as the late game of levels being balanced, similar can be said about the balance of the levels across the entire campaign. At times missions will be brutal, but the one following it will be an absolute breeze. It doesn't feel like the raising of the stakes or increasing the challenge as you progress as a player in your skill. This really needs some refinement. In the department of minor gripes, I found the enable button to grow an edible crops a bit stupid. Time controls are not separated when you click, and I had a major issue with repeated crashes when the game was originally released. I also rapidly lost patience with the fact that there's no mass transit system. Everyone walks, and this puts limitations on how far workers can go for goods and services. On the flip side, however, I can see the argument this plays into forcing the player to think more carefully about their colony layout and add some more challenge in terms of layout planning. Regardless, I would still have liked to have mass transit. As a compromise, perhaps mass transit could have been hard to set up or very expensive to implement. This huge cost would offset the payoff of it overriding limitations of range that makes placing certain services and buildings crucial. In conclusion, guys, Aven Colony is an awkward case of a lack of depth in some areas, which makes a thin veneer of elements that it excels at rather transparent in its attempt to hide something that ultimately under the surface lacks personality and wow factor. The game does function reasonably well, and it looks great in some regards. However, it is plagued with oversaturation of alerts and noise from information splattered all over the screen, to the point where it really takes you out of the whole experience. In addition to this, with a difficulty curve that has no proper flow, lackluster end-of-level gameplay, and residents that feel homogenised and lifeless, it takes what could have been a pretty awesome game into meh territory. I still feel this game is worth a play, but I cannot see it being something that has the staying power to stay installed on my PC, and be something that I come back to over and over. I feel there are much better offerings on the market, such as Surviving Mars, which in comparison really makes you engage with your residents and manage to keep things interesting at all stages. Surviving Mars also has a lot of replayability, whereas Aven Colony suffers from fatigue fairly quickly due to its repetitive nature. As a consequence, this game, in my opinion, scores a mediocre 60%. It's an okay game, but it just does not blow me away, and doesn't draw me back in to want to play it again and again. However, with some minor tweaks in a few crucial areas, I really think this game could have been significantly better. Worth a play, but it's missing the polish and wow factor that other games in the genre have. Thank you so much everyone for watching today's review. I hope you found it interesting, and I would love to hear from you guys in the comments as to your thoughts and feelings. Have any of you actually got this game? Have you played it? What do you think? And is it one of those things that you think has got this sticking power that I genuinely don't think it does, in my opinion? Also, if you want to discuss other potential games in this area that might be worth purchase too, again, feel free. I'd be really interested to hear, because it may be some stuff I have, it may be something I might want to look into. Regardless, guys, though, if you have enjoyed this video, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell notification so that you can stay up to date with the latest offerings on my channel, as well as check me out over on social media on Twitter, Instagram, as well as find me over on Twitch. Information for that will be on screen as well as in the description. Again, thank you so much, guys. Until next time, bye!